Hello again. I'm back with another clock to repair. This one is a Seth Thomas alarm clock. I found it on eBay. It was being sold as a non-working clock for parts only. I haven't tried plugging it in yet, but I'll show you some of the issues that I'm seeing. One is the case has some wooden trim around the face of it. It's missing one piece over here. The dial, it might be hard for you to see, but it's sort of pushed in at the bottom. I'm also seeing a chip on the glass. When I turn it over to the back, there's some play in this whole back plate. If I press on this, I'm sort of moving the whole face in and out a little bit. It's also kind of off-center. There's a gap over here. The writing on it, it says that it's the Canewood model, and I was able to find this clock in the 1960 Seth Thomas catalog. And I'll read you the description. It's a mahogany case. It has a woven wicker front. It has a solid brass bezel. It has luminous hands and luminous dots around each number. And it has solid brass spool type feet. And it's sold for $14.95. Before I plug it in, I want to check it with my ohm meter to make sure that the circuit is intact. I just touched the lead to the plug, and if it's good, you'll see numbers flashing here. Okay, very good. I think we should be able to repair this. Let me plug it in and turn it on. And it is not running. All right, so the next step, turn it off. The next step is going to be to take it apart. And to do that, 2 screws are holding this back plate in. Let me undo those first. There's one. And 2. Okay. All right. Let's slide this off a little bit. Now, let me plug it in again, play with the motor, see if we can get it working. Turn it on. Look at that, kind of sluggish. Well, that's a good sign. Probably just needs a good cleaning and a bit of lubrication, hopefully. So the next step will be to figure out the best way to take this apart. What I want to do first is likely remove the glass, the bezel, and the hands. And it appears as if it's bent in over this plate. So I have to bend out these, looks like 3 spots, I think. At least 2. 1, 2. Third one looks like it's buried under here. Definitely, it's out of alignment. I'll try to show you. Let me turn it off. There's a gap between this part of the plate and the rim here, but down here, the plate is beyond the edge of the rim. So this total thing is kind of off-centered, or it's totally off-centered. Anyway, let me work on undoing this rim, and I'll try to take off the bezel and the glass next. But before I do that, let's see if the alarm works. Let me turn it back on. right now the alarm is set for 5 o'clock. And let's turn it, set it for 10. And pull this out, and now the alarm should be on. Well, it started to ring and then stopped. Okay, try it again. Make it 1 o'clock. Whoop, wrong knob. Okay, the same set knob works for the alarm and the hands. You have to pull it for the hands. Oh, look at that. That just fell off. How about that? Well, the alarm does not seem to be functioning, does it? Oh, there we go. Well, we'll see if I can improve on that. But the first step is going to be getting this apart and cleaning it up so that it runs consistently correct. So let's turn it off again. And now that I have the glass off, I still would have to bend out this rim in order to remove it from here. You can see where the chip is over there. If I have a newer one, I wouldn't mind replacing it with one that's not chipped. But the next step will be to remove the hands. Let me get set up for that. I'm going to assume that the hands are on with just a friction grip. Remove the case here. Oh, it looks like, no, it wasn't threaded. It just came off rather easily. And now we'll try the minute hand. And the hour hand. And lastly, we have the alarm. Once I remove it, I'll have to recalibrate as far as synchronizing everything, because no way will I remember what time it was when I took them off. So let's slip this under here. All right, that wasn't bad. Now to remove the dial, it seems to be glued onto this metal plate. It's a paper dial. All right, so we'll leave it like that for now. Let me take a closer look at this before I start to undo it. There have to be some screws somewhere, but right now I'm not seeing anything. So let me check this out more closely. Okay, I figured out how it comes apart. There are 4 bent tabs holding the dial to this plate. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm just going to bend those up on my own, and then this should come off. So let me work on that. The other thing I'm noticing is I removed this wire. It was secured on this post with this knot. It's so full of sticky, dirty oil or dirt. I'm actually starting to get dirt on this dial, so I have to try to clean that off before I go any further. Maybe wipe down this cord with some alcohol, as well as clean up my hands. So let me do all that first. There was so much dirt and oil and grease built up on this wire that I separated it from where it's connected over here. Cleaned it up. You can see just how much dirt came off of it. I was also able to clean up the dial, so that's looking better. And now I can proceed with bending these tabs up and see if I can remove the dial. 3 of them are up. I'll do the 4th one. All right. Look at all the dirt on here. I got to clean this up as I go along. Okay, now is when I'll start to take a few photos just to keep track of how these gears were arranged, and I'll look more closely to see if I'm able to take this apart further. At first glance, I'm seeing what appears to be a lot of rivets holding these plates together. Older clocks, you would find screws. They're made more easily repairable. Some of the clocks that are not quite as old, I really believe they were not built to be repaired. So anyway, let me take a closer look and I'll see what I can do. Let me show you a couple of things. One is when you're removing a dial from a clock like this, you want to make sure when you go to put it back together that you're seating it in the right position. So what I'll do is, I wrote a 12 on this plate, lets me know that this is how the dial seats, and I'll be certain to put it back in the correct position. The other thing is, as I was handling this, I looked down and I see this large, I would call this a spring washer, and it's sat over here, and I can see the imprint of it on this side of the dial. What I don't know is it seated with the concave side up or down? I'm leaning towards it being the other way. I think it's set like that. But I really won't know until I have this thing back together after I think I've repaired it, whether it works properly or not. But just something else to keep an eye out. You really need to be careful to see how things are falling apart once you remove a part of it. Anyway, the next step will be, as I said, let me take my photos. What I'm seeing is that I cannot take this apart. The only gear that I can remove is this one here, and I'm noticing a lot of dirt and oil and grease built up on the gears inside here. So I'm going to have to try to clean it as best I can using some Q-tips, some toothpicks, some small toothbrushes, and try to get in here, remove as much of the dirt as I can, and I will try to get some oil into the motor. I'll try to find some openings where I can put in a few drops, and hopefully it'll run smoothly on its own and not have to be spun each time you want to make it go. So let me get to work cleaning it up. Okay, I've got this about as clean as I can get it. A lot of dirt was removed. I was able to get some oil into the motor. I put a few drops in where the output gear comes through the plate on the inside, hard to see. I then turned it on and it was spinning quite freely. I let it sit for about a half hour, tried it again, and again it was up to speed. Now it's actually been sitting for a couple of hours. Let me turn it on. It's plugged in. And I think it's working properly. I think the true test is I'm going to let this sit turned off overnight. And if it starts in the morning at this speed right off the bat, then I know that I'm good to go. So we'll wait until then. Well, it's morning. It's been sitting overnight. Let me turn it on. And it looks like it got to full speed without any lag. So I think we're going to be okay proceeding with the next step, which I think will be putting the dial and the hands back on this. Let me turn it off, unplug it, and take off the power cord. Okay, so I know that this gear will fit here, and this, I believe, went this way, and I put a 12 up top, so this will seat over it. I just have to line up the tabs and then bend them back into position. So let me do that on my own. The dial is secured. What I have to do now is synchronize the alarm, and I realized I need to have the power cord attached for that, so I've done that. Another thing I've noticed is as I'm handling this, if I press on this wheel, it'll cause it to stop, and when I turn it on again, it doesn't always start right up. This time it did. For the most part, it is starting every time I turn it on. So I just have to avoid pressing on this wheel. Anyway, to synchronize the alarm, I have to seat the alarm hand pretty much anywhere to start. Pull out the alarm stem and just let's turn it back on and turn the alarm until it rings. I think it wanted to ring at the 1. There it is. So I'm going to call that 12 o'clock. And then we'll put the hour hand on the 12. And then the minute hand. And the second hand. Okay, still running. And let's set the alarm for 3 o'clock and see how accurate this is. I hit the alarm button too soon. Let's try that again. Set it back for 3. Out. All right, that's not bad at all. Although to be honest, no one's going to use this as an alarm clock. Okay, let's turn it off. The next thing I want to work on is replacing the glass in the bezel here. So I have to bend out these tabs and try to remove the glass. I did come up with what I think is the same size. So let me try to get this out of here and double check that this actually fits. I'll see how easy it is to bend this. I don't want to use too much force. I don't want to risk breaking the glass, but that's not bad. Well, there are little indents all the way close to where the glass is sitting, and it's going to take me a bit longer to kind of bend those out. So let me finish up on my own. I'll try to show you what I'm talking about. Right there's one. And there. It's more than just how this was bent in, because now this is pretty straight. So let me work on those. I've removed the glass, and I was able to seat the new one in here. It's a very tight fit, and I have to be very gentle as I kind of tease it into place, so I'm not going to put it in again. I don't want to be taking this in and out, but I have to clean the glass. I also want to polish the rim, so I'll do that on my own, and when I come back, this should be seated in here. I've polished the rim, I've cleaned and seated the glass. Now I just have to place this over the dial. And then bend the 3 tabs back into position. I'll do that on my own. I've got the rim and the glass back onto the clock, and I can put this aside for now. And I want to focus on restoring the case. There's a few things I'd like to do with it. Parts of it are in very good condition, but on this side, I don't know if these are oil stains or water stains, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to clean them off. I'd like to try to polish the brass feet. On the back of it, I have these 2 notches here, which are sort of dug out on either side, and I realize these I think were caused by the back plate, which has a couple of tabs sticking out from each side. And I think at one point they helped to lock this in to the case. But somehow over time, whether it went back and forth or wore out the wood here, it caused this to be loose. So I'm wondering if I just bend these out, will it make a tighter fit and a more secure, so that the whole dial won't be rotating at all. And lastly, I'd like to figure out a way to restore the missing piece of wood from the frame here. And I'll show you what I have for that. It's a roll of wood veneer. And the way it works is, once you have a piece that you want to apply, the way that it sticks to whatever surface you're putting it on is by using a hot iron, and there's glue on the back of it which gets activated from the heat. But a couple of things I have to do first. One is I'm going to need to stain the wood to try to match the frame. So the first step will be to sort of do a test of some of my stains. And I have several, but the lightest one that I have is my Howard's Restore Finish. So let me just go over this with that and we'll see how it looks. Definitely darkened it up some. And I think that's going to be a pretty good match. So what I have to do next is cut off a piece the proper length, and because it's a curved roll, I need to straighten it out. And the way to do that is moisten the wood and then just put a heavy weight on it, a book, something like that, overnight, and that'll straighten it out flat. Once I've done that, I just have to cut the piece to fit here and then look to glue it in using the hot iron. So let me get started on all of that. I flattened a piece of the veneer and cut off the corners, and when I place it in position, it's really a very good fit. However, the veneer is much thinner than the wood around the frame, and I felt if I use 2 pieces, that would be thick enough for everything to blend in nicely. So I flattened the second piece, cut the corners off of that, and if I put both of them on, whoop, they fit pretty perfectly, and it's just about a flush mount now from one edge to the other. So what I'm going to do is I'll stain both of them, and then I'll look to iron one of them into position first, and then the second one on top of that. So let me do the stains first. Both pieces of veneer have been stained. I positioned the first one. I'm holding it in place with a piece of tape. The instructions say to protect the iron by covering the wood with a piece of aluminum foil. So I'm just going to look to heat one spot in the center to sort of stick it in place. So let's see how this works. And that seems glued on. Let's try some more of it. Now I'm just going to try to press it down a little bit because the tape is a little downwards. I want to try to glue all of it to the edge of the wood. So let me go over it again. That's working pretty good. I'm going to continue gently heating it up and pressing it down. Once I'm happy with how this is positioned, I'll do the same thing with the second one. One interesting thing about this product is it says that if you don't like how it's been positioned, you can warm it up with the iron and then remove it and then do it again. Anyway, let me finish this piece, as I said, and then I'll place this one as well. I've got the first piece on, but before placing the second one, the instructions say that you need to trim off the excess and then sand down the edge a little bit. So I'm going to use an X-Acto knife for that, and I'm very gently and slowly going to just trim off the excess here. So I'll do that on my own because that could take a while. Once it's removed and smooth, then I'll place the second piece. I've trimmed and sanded the edge, and I think it's coming out really nice. One thing though I want to do before placing the second piece is I want to clean the case, and I'm concerned with any of the wood cleaner that I use staining this piece of veneer. So I'm going to go ahead and clean the case first, so even if it does get a bit of a stain, it'll be hidden by the second piece. So we'll look to clean it, I'll look to polish the feet, then I'll go back to placing the next piece of veneer. I use a wood floor cleaner. I don't know how much dirt is on here, but I guess we'll find out. Well, definitely some. So I'll go over the whole case like this, and then I'll continue. The case is clean. I polished the feet. I wasn't able to do anything about the stains on this side. What I'm going to do next is put the second piece of veneer in place, and I'm going to do that on my own. You've seen how it's done. And once that's finished, then I'll be ready to put the clock back into the case. A couple of things. One is I placed the second piece of veneer, but once I ironed it down, it was lower than the molding. I had a bit of a gap over here. So I placed a third piece of veneer, except I positioned it a little bit away, creating a bit of a step. So it sort of matches the fact that the molding here has kind of a beveled look to it. And I think that blends it in pretty nicely. So now I'm going to go ahead and just trim off the excess and sand it down a bit. I've completed the work on the case. It's not quite 100% match, but I think it's looking pretty good. It really blends in nicely, I think. So the next step is I want to adjust this back plate so it's a tighter fit. I'm going to bend out these little tabs, see if it engages these grooves in the wood. Well, that seems much better. Now, there's no rotation at all on it. Okay, so what I'm going to work on next is reattaching the power cord. First, I have to slip it through the plate and through the case, and then attach it to the mechanism. So let me get started on that. It's through the plate and the case, and I wrapped the knot around this post. And what I'm going to do next on my own is reconnect the power cord with the 2 wire nuts. Then I'll be ready to put the whole thing back into the case. The wire is connected. Okay. And now for the back plate. Now I just have to secure the plate with the sleeve and the 2 screws, and I'll do that on my own. And then I should be ready to set this up for a final look at it. It's set up and it's plugged in. Let me turn it on. And it's running. Now let's check to see if the alarm is working. I have it set to 5 o'clock. Okay, just a few minutes off. But the reality is no one's going to be using this for an alarm clock. So there you have it. It's the Seth Canewood alarm clock from 1960. I'm pretty pleased how this one came out, especially with the woodworking that I had to do. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. And that pretty much wraps things up. Bye for now.